When I was younger, my forehand was a massive liability. I had timing issues, so my forehand had a tendency to break down under pressure in matches, and I also lacked the ability to attack with any sort of consistency. I tended to make way too many unforced errors, so I spent most of my time just kind of spinning the ball back in and hoping to not make mistakes. But I'm happy to say I was able to turn my forehand into a real weapon that was very consistent. I could hit with power, I could vary the spins, I could do basically what I wanted with it. There was a lot of different stuff that I had to learn to make that happen, but in this video I want to explain one of the most important things that I learned about the forehand that enabled me to turn it into a weapon. And now that I've started playing left-handed, because I injured myself in a mountain bike crash, so I'm relearning to play left-handed, this same thing has been really helpful in enabling me to kind of get my left hand to the point where it's at now, where it's starting to turn into a weapon as well. So hopefully you find this helpful. It's not something that I really hear talked about too much on other coaching videos, so I hope you enjoy it, and if you do, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, it always really helps me out if you could do that as well. So the thing that I'm talking about here is intentionally adjusting the position that my racket goes into as I initiate my forward swing. So generally when we're hitting our forehand, it could be from a neutral stance, it could be a semi-open stance, it could be an open stance, but regardless of what position, the body is going to be roughly side on, maybe a little bit further, so we've got that good unit turn as well. We then initiate the swing by driving through our back or outside hip. So if it's an open stance, if it's a neutral stance, so whatever stance we're hitting from, we're driving through the hip. As we do that, our torso starts to rotate, and also at the same time that we do that, we're generally doing some kind of racket drop to start creating the racket lag. And it's that part that I really found beneficial to adjust. Like when you hear coaches talking about it, they tend to demonstrate it in a very specific way, going, okay, we turn to there, we then do that, and the racket's in this position, and you know, they're very precise about it. But I found for me, one of the keys was adjusting that position dependent on the shot that I'm hitting. So I'm set up in a semi-open stance, I've done my unit turn, and what I mean by that is, as I drive through my hip, sometimes I would think about pushing my racket back that way, and sometimes I would think about pushing it that way, and sometimes I would think about pushing it that way. But I would do that very intentionally. From there through to there is much further than from there through to there. So what I did was, when I had more time, I would kind of push it back that way. So if the ball was a little bit higher, it was floating, and I was allowing it to drop, I know I've got loads of time because the ball's dropping. It makes it much easier for me to gauge. So I trusted my timing more. So I would push it further back, and that would give me more room to be able to rotate and create racket head speed. Whereas if someone hit the ball harder and deeper and I had less time, then instead of thinking about doing my racket drop into that position back there, I would do my racket drop more out there. So just to the side rather than back. And obviously what this looks like if you've got a straight arm when you make contact, or if you've got a bent arm, so that's going to be a factor as well in terms of what it looks like. But the concept of pushing it back there, or pushing it there, or pushing it out there was absolutely, you know, a forehand transforming for me, because it enabled me to make the relative adjustments and improve my timing dramatically. So at the start, when I was learning how to do this, I had to think through every movement that I made. So I was thinking about the ball that came to me and thinking about making that adjustment dependent on the flight of the ball. But I did lots and lots of repetitions over time, and as I did more repetitions, it kind of habituated that for me. So at the end, before I stopped playing right-handed, I wasn't thinking about making this conscious adjustment. I'd done lots of repetitions, so then as the ball was coming towards me, my brain would kind of naturally choose, and I would either go back there, or I would go back there, or I would kind of make the adjustment based on what was required. And that's the same thing that you have to go through as well. The phases of learning, you always start out consciously, so you're thinking about every movement that you're making, but then as you do more and more and more and more repetitions, it becomes more of a habit. Now, in addition to the position this way or that way, I also consciously thought about the height that I would take it back to. So, you know, if I was dealing with a higher ball, often I would push it out to the side, but I would push it out higher. So rather than kind of being in this position and going there and then up to there, I would just kind of push it more into that position. So I've pushed it sideways, but then I haven't pushed it down. So now it's more in line with the flight of the ball, and again, that made the timing much easier. And obviously the same thing if the ball was down lower. You know, I might have my preparation up there. I'm not going to do my racket drop over there somewhere if the ball's down there. I'm going to do my racket drop down into this position. So now I don't have to go too far from there to making contact there. And exactly the same thing applies in terms of the conscious and thinking through the process. But get out there, give it a try. See if thinking about this helps with your timing. And if it does, remember, it's a case of doing a lot of repetitions before it's going to hold up under pressure in matches. So hopefully by playing around with that, it's really going to help you to improve your timing. But it is also worth mentioning that there can be other things that can prevent you from having good timing. For a lot of players, they don't prepare soon enough, and that causes issues with their timing. Other players really struggle with setting up in the right position, and they don't get good spacing and things like that. So that can also create challenges in terms of timing. Now, if you're not sure what's holding you back at the moment with your forehand, then you might be interested in a new masterclass that I've created, which teaches you how to identify the underlying problems with your strokes, so then you can focus on fixing that underlying problem. I will place a link to that masterclass down in the description so that you can watch it if you're interested. Okay, thank you for watching this video. I hope it's been beneficial to you. If you have any questions or comments about this concept or anything else to do with your forehand, then leave them in the comment section. And otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.